Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that last story, because for me, it's always helpful to hear about someone else's career path. Maybe you even noticed a few parallels between their career path and your own, or you felt inspired to pursue a specific area of project management. So far, we've discussed the types of project management roles you'll be qualified for and how to search for them. And earlier, we discussed the value that project managers bring to their teams and their organizations. Now let's learn more about the roles and responsibilities of a project manager. Earlier, you learned that project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to meet the project requirements and achieve the desired outcome. So, how does that actually happen? Well, that's where you come in. Project managers usually follow a process that involves planning and organizing, managing tasks, budgeting, and controlling costs, and other factors so that the project can be completed within the approved budget and time frame. Let's break these down into examples of responsibilities that you might find in a job listing for a project management role. We'll start with planning and organizing. One responsibility that falls under the umbrella of planning and organizing is making use of productivity tools and creating processes. During the planning and execution of a project, you might need to use certain tools and develop processes to improve information sharing across the team. You may also need to create plans, timelines, schedules, and other forms of documentation to track project completion. And you'll usually need to maintain those documents throughout the entirety of the project. The next task is budgeting and controlling costs and other factors. As the project is underway, changes to the plan and budget are bound to come up. Believe me, this will require you to monitor and manage the budget, track issues and risks as they arise, and manage quality by mitigating those issues and risks. One way to do this is by removing unforeseen barriers that come up. Now, by barriers, we mean things that can get in the way of project progress. For example, if your teammates lack the resources needed to complete a task, you might identify that issue or barrier up front, escalate the issue to a stakeholder, and work to secure the resource so your team can move forward. Another huge piece of the project manager's role is managing tasks. A project task is an activity that needs to be accomplished within a set period of time by you, your team, or your stakeholders. Keeping track of tasks is a great way to help manage the team's workload and ensure that things are getting done. Keeping track of tasks is also a great tool for demonstrating progress to people outside the immediate team, like your stakeholders. Back when I was a program manager in student development here at Google, one of our goals was to create pathways for students who identify with communities that are underrepresented in the technology industry. A large part of my day-to-day responsibilities involved working with two separate engineering teams to create our technical curriculum. To manage the tasks associated with this project, I created separate project trackers for each team that outlined the vision for the curriculum. These trackers kept both teams in the loop about the timeline for delivery, the categories and subcategories for work, and the team members assigned to each task. I also made sure to update our stakeholders every step of the way. By actively managing tasks throughout the project lifecycle, I was able to keep tabs on everyone's work and efficiently inform stakeholders, which allowed us to achieve our project goal with minimal issues. Nice job. Now you should be able to describe the roles and responsibilities of a project manager. Coming up, we'll discuss a project manager's role within the extended team, including how to work alongside the people tasked with executing the project. Catch you in a bit. Hey, and welcome back. Earlier, you learned more about the responsibilities of a project manager. And while it might seem like a lot to keep track of, it's important to know that you, as the project manager, won't need to do everything on your own. Let's discuss the role of the project manager and how that role relates to other roles within the project team. It's easier to hear the term manager and immediately think of your boss, but a project manager is not often the direct manager of the people working on a project team. Here we're discussing the project manager as someone who manages the tasks of a project. But what does that really mean, right? Well, although you might have a few teammates working with you on a project, you're probably not their day-to-day boss. With the help of your team, you can get a lot more done together. Everyone on your team will have their own set of roles and responsibilities, and you'll come together to ensure that everyone is able to do their part to advance the project. Each person will be an expert on their portion of the project, but no one will be an expert on every aspect of the project. And honestly, neither will you. For instance, the graphic designer will focus on graphic design, but probably won't be an expert on copywriting. Similarly, you'll be an expert on project management, but may not be an expert on marketing. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine that you're organizing a camping trip. You might be the person in charge of planning the trip, but that doesn't mean you have to be a camping expert. Maybe you've never been camping before, but your partner grew up spending every summer by the campfire. In that case, you might assign them the task of picking out the right number and style of tents for your group. So, in this example, you are planning the trip by giving your partner the job of finding the right number of tents and the right size tents to make sure everyone's covered. You aren't doing the research or the task yourself, but you're making sure that things are getting done. It's similar in the workplace. As the project manager, you won't be an expert in every project role, and that's okay. As we said, your job isn't to be the expert on everything. Instead, you're responsible for guiding your team and making sure that they have the support that they need in order to complete the project. So how does a project manager go about doing that? Let's discuss using a few more examples of the required responsibilities you might find in a job listing. First, you'll need to hold all team members accountable for their assigned tasks. Managing tasks will help you hold your team members accountable by giving them ownership over specific pieces of the project. Second, you'll need to ensure that issues and risks are tracked and visible, and be able to establish escalation paths. Now, by escalation paths, I mean that you should know how you'll communicate risks to the right people at the right time. Third, you'll need to understand and help teammates adopt the right workflows and project management styles. As the project manager, you'll likely have the best idea of which style is best for the work. It's your job to ensure that the team adheres to that style and the other systems in place. And fourth, you'll need to collaborate with other teams at the organization to meet the requirements based on project, scope, schedule, and budget. In other words, a project may affect not only your team, but other teams at an organization, as well, say, the marketing or the finance team. So you'll need to work with those teams to ensure that everyone is happy with the project outcomes. You'll learn more about working with other stakeholders in a later course. Catch all that? Let's recap. You've learned that a project manager isn't always the direct manager of each member of the project team. Rather, they're responsible for guiding those people and ensuring they have the support they need to complete the project. Now that you have a good sense of the way that a project manager fits into the project team, let's move a little bit ahead, where we'll discuss the types of skills that a project manager needs to succeed. Meet you there.
A great project manager is some funky combination of EMT, ninja, and jazz musician. An EMT who can show up on a scene that's full of chaos, figure out what needs to happen now, triage all of the things on site, and then develop a plan of action while also participating in that action. A ninja, because you kind of have to be stealth about how you go about influencing other people. Overt action or pushing people too hard isn't necessarily received well. And a jazz musician, particularly a jazz drummer, who keeps a steady beat as a lot of things are happening around you. On a team, you're going to be surrounded by a bunch of talented people. A trombone player, a bass player, a trumpet player, a pianist, and you, keeping the beat and making sure that everybody is working in time. I spend most of my days with my product and engineering counterparts talking a lot about strategy, updating status to key stakeholders, and trying to figure out what comes next for our product. Some things about my job never change, from this day to my very first day. The fact that I communicate with a lot of people in a day, a lot of different types of people, from engineers to product managers to partnerships to sales and marketing, all of that's the same. The biggest difference is the number of people that I communicate with and the complexity of the topics I cover. The most important thing for you to keep in mind is staying organized. The more organized you are in your actions, the more organized your team is in their thinking and their actions. What I do to stay organized is lists. Lists. All day long. I have Post-it notes, I have electronic lists, I have lists in emails, and those lists help me stay on top of what actions need to happen now, what actions need to happen next, and which I can put off for a few more days. I do use the list to help manage my time. I think one of the things my lists are most important for is making sure I know what needs to be done today. And then, once my list is made and I'm sure of what needs to be done today, I budget time for those things. A stand-up is a quick meeting, usually at the start of the day, but you can have them really at any time. My stand-ups usually happened in the morning, around 9:30 or 10 o'clock, depending on when the engineering team got in. They lasted for about 15 minutes so that we were clear on what had gotten done the day before and what was on the docket to get done today. And then we usually checked in again quickly around lunch to make sure that people were still on track or ran into any technical issues that might require a longer time to finish the task. I think the thing that makes me a great project manager is a bias to action and resilience. One of my favorite phrases is pick it and stick it, in part because I think it's important to make a decision to get yourself unstuck, to follow through on that action, learn some things, and decide to take a new action once you've learned something. The latter half of that is resilience. I am resilient and my teams are resilient. So if we've taken a bad action, we've learned that we can learn and change our mind with new information. I'm Elita, a senior engineering program manager at Google.